This is crazy, I tell you.
I'm getting a notice that says streaming live.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I got it too.
Okay. I want to thank everybody that's joining in with us on this afternoon. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do this meeting, I was reading an article from the CDC from 2017, and it mentioned that youth aged 13 to 24 made up 21% of 38,739 new HIV diagnosed in the United States. Youth with HIV are least likely of any group to be linked to care in a timely manner to suppress the viral load. And of that number, 51% was Black, 25% was Hispanic Latino, 18% was white, and 6% was other races. And it got me to thinking that this is something that we really need to talk about. You know, a lot of people, especially in the Black community, don't like to talk about sex with their children. And it's fearful of that because children gonna learn one way or another. They can learn from the house or they can learn from the street. And I'd rather for my child, if I had children, to learn from the house. And a quote that I saw, and it really made sense to me. It said, "We are not comfortable discussing sex and sexuality in the Black community. In order to destigmatize HIV/AIDS, we have to destigmatize sex and learn to discuss it in a healthy manner." So I was thinking, I said, I need to do a session on this, and I had to think of two great people to do it with me. And I reached out to a good friend of mine, Gerald Gibson, and another good friend of mine, Luane Childers. And Mr. Gerald Gibson currently serves as the director of the LGBTQI engagement and community outreach. He plans to implement comprehensive sexual health screening events throughout the state. He also oversees the massive condom distribution campaign, which has expanded from just clubs and bars to beauty salons, barbershops, clothing boutiques, and some church organizations and retail outlets. He is the co-coordinator for the community-based program educational component, where they present on topics ranging from HIV, STD 101, stigma, and cultural competency. He has done and currently does presentations all over the states in various settings, from schools to churches and colleges and universities. He has presented at numerous conferences and community forums on various HIV, STD education, and LGBTI related topics. He holds a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Alcorn State University and a master's degree in sociology from Jackson State University. He has worked in the public health arena for approximately 13 years. Mr. Gibson has learned that no task is too small, and every individual plays a pivotal role in educating their community. When he's not working, he loves to read, work out, travel, and gain knowledge. His life motto is live well, laugh often, love much. And we welcome Mr. Gibson. We also have with us Mr. Childers. And Mr. Childers is a native of Birmingham, Alabama. His autobiography, Peeling Back the Layers, A Story of Trauma, Grace, and Triumph, was selected as one of the top 6 autobiographies of 2015 by the Colorado Independent Publishers Association. Childers is also a recipient of the National Edward R. Murrow Award for Journalistic Excellence. In addition, Childers has won numerous Mississippi Associated Press Broadcaster Award for his reporting with Mississippi Public Broadcasting, a statewide affiliate of National Public Radio. In 2014, the Alabama Community College System selected Childers as its most outstanding alumnus in the institution's 50-year history. The ACCS awarded a $5,000 scholarship in Childers' name to a deserving Alabama high school senior. During the same year, Childers was named Alumnus of the Year for Jefferson State Community College in Birmingham. He currently resides in Nashville, Tennessee, where he serves on the executive committee of the Nashville Regional HIV Council panel. Childers also works as a freelance journalist, national voiceover artist, HIV/AIDS advocate, and motivational and keynote speaker. And we welcome Mr. Childers with us this afternoon. How you fellas doing?
Good to be here. Yeah.
Good, good.
Doing great.
Good to hear. Mr. Gibson, basically what I wanted to go in, I wanted to talk with you first to give us kind of like some like one-on-one information about HIV as far as the, well, you go ahead.
As far as what modes of transmission?
Transmission, the difference between the stigmas of negative, being negative, a person who's positive, and a person who's undetected. And we're going to talk about some myths and stigmas of HIV.
Okay. Well, of course, HIV definitely is not like coronavirus. Coronavirus, we still don't know how we're contracting coronavirus. We're thinking it's something dealing with your respiratory that's in the air. HIV is a physical disease. It's really simple when you really think about it. It has to be contracted through bodily fluids such as blood, vaginal secretions, and breast milk, and semen. So those are the 4 bodily fluids that HIV is contracted through. So we talking about HIV and we talking about stigma. The stigma is still so rampant in our community because we don't like to have these kind of conversations. We shy away from these conversations. We can talk about, we don't want to talk about sexual health. We don't want to talk about mental health. In our minds is we think we can pray everything away. But God gave us common sense that we need to talk about certain things. So we talk about stigma. It's all about education. We don't like the education piece because we're afraid of things like that. In our community, if we feel like we don't talk about it, we don't hear about it. And let's not even talk about sexual orientation. We're really not ready for that conversation.
Exactly. Because when you mention families not wanting to talk about it, and well, I'm not going to even go there. So let's talk about with HIV, a person that's negative, positive, and undetectable. Give us the definition of those 3.
Okay, negative is a person that they have been getting tested for HIV. They have not received a positive test result or reactive test result. Now, individuals know if they know that they are a high risk, a person that may like to have unprotected sex, they can get on what we call now PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis. This is prevention is treatment. So you're preventing this because you have certain behaviors that you just don't like using condoms. Let's use this for example. You don't like using condoms, so you can take a pill once a day that'll prevent you from ever acquiring HIV. Now that's the negative individual. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but what is the data with the person that's on
PrEP? The data is the PrEP is 97% effective when it's taken correctly. So what the person want to do is, let's say I decided to get on PrEP. I'm HIV negative and I want to get on PrEP because I feel like I don't like using condoms or whatever. All I have to do is take my 1 pill a day, which is Descovy. Now we were using Truvada, but there's kind of transition over to Descovy. It's a 1 pill a day, and it's really very effective. The efficacy is on the person to make sure that they take it. So if I start today and I take it at 7 p.m., I need to take it at 7 p.m. tomorrow. Find a regimen while I'm taking it around the same time.
Okay. And for a person that's undetected?
Undetectable is when it's the virus, you still have HIV because we know that you can't cure it yet, but the treatment is great. Now, it's about 30 different medications out there. So undetectable is when the virus is so small and your body is still there that you can take an HIV test and it won't detect it. And you also will not, you cannot transmit the virus to another person as well, even if you're having condomless sex.
Okay, and that's about what, 99?
Yeah, it's about 90. That's probably like about 99% accurate as well.
Okay. And what are some of the myths and stigmas that you all have heard?
The myth is going to always be that it's a gay man's disease. It's always going to be a myth. HIV is a disease of opportunity. If you get in a situation, a person that don't know their status, because we still have individuals that are not getting tested. The only way you'll know your HIV status is to go get tested. We use the instant test. It takes 60 seconds or 1 minute. You'll have your results right then and there. And from there, regardless of what your needs are, if you need us to connect you to PrEP, if you need to get in treatment and care, we're going to do all of that on the spot. We have the mental health component. We have the food pantry. We had transportation. COVID has kind of changed some of the dynamics of how we operate. So we're still trying to figure that out. But we want to see a person from a holistic perspective. It's a case-by-case basis. Every individual needs are going to be different. Some people lack family support. Some people lack transportation. Some people lack jobs. So what we're trying to do, we're trying to be that support system that they need during this time. It's a life-changing event, but the beauty of it is, it's not a death sentence anymore unless the person make it.
So why do you think that the numbers are growing so much in the South than it is in other areas of the
But
United States.
let's look at COVID. Let's look at our map of slavery. Let's look at how the South operates. The South has been involved, and not even the South, the United States as a whole. We're seeing that now with Black Lives Matter movement. We have been entrenched in systematic racism for so long. The system have been designed to fail us. We even go back now, they're talking about the COVID trials with the vaccine, how they cannot get minority communities to engage because we still dealing with things like the Tuskegee experiment. We have things that they have done us that they have not made right. So our trust is not there. And one thing about us, we're loving people, but we don't trust quickly. And once you burnt us once, you'd have burnt us forever.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. LaWayne, let's go over to you. When you wrote in your book, Peeling Back the Layers, in which is a book that tells about how you have endured the most horrific trauma imaginable, including childhood sexual abuse, depression, crack cocaine addiction, and HIV diagnosis. But you beat all of your odds. Can you start with your story?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Let's see. My story goes back to when I was about 4 years old. When I first had my first bout with trauma, and I was 4 years old. My cousin was 2 years old. We were playing in the potbelly stove that my granddaddy had set up in the living room. He went to sleep, and my cousin and I are playing in this potbelly stove, and we made little tiki lanterns out of them, out of these little sticks and this little cloth. Made little tiki lanterns, and my cousin dropped some fire on the floor, and it started getting bigger and bigger, and we tried to put it out with little glasses of water, but we couldn't. And he ended up running into the room where the fire was actually enraged, and he ran under the bed trying to get away from the fire. And I remember trying to pull him out. But the flames were so hot, and he was so strong. I'm just 4, he's 2, and I couldn't reach him. And I remember him slipping out of my hand and running into the room where the fire was, and that's where he burned to death. There was a guy that was walking by that saw the flames billowing from the rooftop. He was able to burst into the door. He was able to save me, but he couldn't save my cousin. That's where my story starts, with trauma. And from that, between kindergarten and second grade, I was repeatedly sexually abused by my stepfather. Somewhere between 3rd grade and 5th grade, I started engaging in some really devious activities, shoplifting and doing other things like that. Was just on this downward trajectory. And by the time I reached young adulthood, I had depression. I was in a bad relationship, and I was dealing with HIV. And I was in my late 30s when I was diagnosed with HIV. In my late 20s, I'm sorry, when I was diagnosed with HIV. The only reason that I went to get tested is because I had a very heterosexual cousin who tested positive for HIV. She and her husband were trying to have a baby. They had gone to the doctor. She got sick. They were at Emory University in Atlanta and trying to figure out what was wrong with her because she had all of these issues going on and they never could determine what it was. Somebody finally had the brainy idea to do an HIV test. Now, this was back in 1985, maybe 85, something like that. 89. This was in 89. And they did the HIV test on her. She tested positive, not for HIV, but it had progressed to AIDS. Yeah. And after she tested, I said to myself, I know that my cousin couldn't have done half the things that I've done in my life. So I went to get tested. But going to get tested was a huge deal because of the stigma. I was afraid to go to the Department of Health in Birmingham. And so what I wanted to do was park my car like several blocks away walk to the Department of Health, and hopefully nobody would see me. Well, it didn't work out that way. I ended up parking in the parking lot. Didn't run into anybody I knew, but did go in there, mustered up the courage to go and get that test done. And I'm so glad I did. That was 30 years ago that I tested positive. So I'm a long-term survivor when it comes to HIV. And not only am I a long-term survivor, but I'm aging with HIV. That's a huge deal.
Yes,
Right.
it is. Yes, it
When
is.
you first got your diagnosis that you were HIV positive, how were you emotionally and mentally?
You know what? I had kind of prepared myself, so I thought, for this diagnosis.
Mhm.
Because in my mind, if my cousin, who was very straight laced, if she could come up with HIV, surely I could with all the stuff that I had done. So mentally, I had kind of prepared myself for it. Now, what's interesting, we talked earlier about COVID. I thought that I had been exposed to COVID like a couple of weeks ago. I had to go and get a COVID test. While I'm in my car waiting to get this test, I was so nervous. And I started thinking about the day that I tested positive for HIV. I was so nervous. I was more nervous about getting a COVID test than I was about getting an HIV test.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, really interesting. And I thought it was interesting too. But I tested negative for COVID. And it took, but that whole week that I'm waiting on my results, I was like nervous. So we were talking about the correlation between COVID and HIV. I can definitely see a correlation in so many things when it comes to COVID and HIV, the way that people are treated.
Yes.
You know, the way that people are treated. We were talking earlier. I remember seeing something on Facebook, one of these little TikTok things. And the girl comes in, gives her mother this paper, and she's positive for COVID. And her mother told her to get out of my house. Don't drink out of any of my glasses. Don't eat any of my food. Get out of my house. And that's the same thing that we were being told 30 years ago,
Right.
when it comes to HIV. But this is the thing, those same conversations are going on today. Right. Get out of my house. Don't drink out of my dish. Don't do this. And so, and I was winding up. So, you know, for me, being newly diagnosed, not being newly diagnosed, being diagnosed 30 years, my whole thing now is to try to help those who are newly diagnosed and to offer them some kind of guidance or whatever I can offer.
When you were talking about the Facebook post, it made me think about a Facebook post that I had read about 2 weeks ago, where someone had contracted COVID, and they say that they beat the virus and everything. Then they went back to work, and of course he had told the people that he had tested positive and he beat it, but he said that people was very standoffish from him, like he had HIV. And when that connection there, I'm like, to me, that was two different things. I can understand what he was saying, but you know, it was just two different things for me.
Yeah, they are two different things, but they're so similar as to the way that we treat them. We treat them so similarly.
Mm-hmm. But I think it's out of fear.
Mm-hmm.
Fear is a big factor in just about anything that we do.
Mm-hmm.
And the fear of the unknown is very dangerous.
Yeah.
It's very dangerous. And that's one of the, I keep thinking in my head, I'm glad that you both agreed to sit down with me on this topic this afternoon.
And I want to interject on, we were talking about a person HIV positive. We say that a person is living with HIV now, because for too long we put this virus before the person. So now we say a person is living with HIV. We giving the person, we're affirming the person and not the virus.
Yeah.
So we don't use the term HIV positive anymore.
So we're
And don't
saying
we
living with
HIV.
living with
A
HIV?
person that's living with HIV.
Okay. Okay. What were you about to say, Luane?
Just to wrap it up, like what he said, living with HIV.
Okay. So in your, both of you guys, you know, do HIV advocacy and everything. When you're talking with young people, especially because after reading that article and I'm seeing where it says children 13 years of age are contracting this virus. That was a real, I don't think I ever thought about it as being someone that young.
Oh yeah, and it's several factors to it as well. You're talking about children that have to have survival sex, so they really it's for their survival. It's not always about money, maybe a person to give them somewhere to stay, giving them whatever. So it's survival. They are trying to survive. So let's look at this parent that says, "Get out of my house." You are putting your children in the past to drug addiction and HIV because they have no skill set. You have kicked them out of their house when they are not ready and they are not economically viable to be out on their own. So when I talk to parents like that, I say, you may not be able to understand your child, but do you want to harm your child? Let's have that conversation.
Wow.
Yeah, and I've done stories like that too, where people are made to leave the house, have to take up with the boyfriend. They become physically abused. They become physically abused. They become verbally abused, emotionally abused. They end up doing whatever it takes to survive. Just like you were talking about, Gerald, it's about surviving. And for me, to see these things that were going on 30 years ago still going on today, it tells me that we still have a lot of work to do.
Oh, we definitely do.
A lot of work to do.
And it starts with us conversing. Another issue that we need to address now, especially in the Black gay community, is I'm seeing a lot of my younger guys get addicted to crystal meth, or they call it ice, or they call it do you party, things like that. And they are not understanding. This is not a traditional something. This is something that's being introduced to us from our white counterparts, and they're taking that up. Because that's not something normally that we would participate in, but we're seeing more and more data on that. And that's definitely erratic behavior, and it makes an individual overly, hyperly sexual. So that's another avenue where they're not going to protect themselves, and they're going to engage in risky behaviors.
Wow.
Right.
And those individuals are not likely to know their status nor or care about their status.
Yeah. Now I've seen a lot of people. Well, I ain't gonna say I've seen a lot of people, but I've seen where some people have participated in what they call a conversion party from back in the day, and they say that they would rather have HIV than to have to worry about not contracting. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, that's stupid because HIV affects everybody differently.
Right.
You know, and depends on what your health is before you get the virus, can determine whether you're on medicine or not, can determine your outcome. You may not.
Well, the thing about it, as soon as you know your status, you need to be on your medication. That's the thing. And what we do is we do rapid start. If you come in and get that the rapid HIV test, the 60-second test, if that comes back positive, we're gonna start doing everything else to get you right on your medication right then and there. So the provider's gonna come in and make sure that you don't have any other underlying issues that may stop that. But the beauty of it is the fact that we have 30 great medications out there now. And it's just one pill a day for everybody.
The cost of this medication.
Well, you know, you have several programs. You have ADAP, AIDS Drug Assistance Program, where individuals can get it for free if they don't have the income. And then a lot of insurances have become more progressive. They'll pay for the medication as well. But without those programs and insurance, the medication costs like $1,500 a month.
Wow.
But nobody has to worry about going without medication. That's one thing about it.
So it's really, I was about to say it's going to sound very, like you said earlier, it's not the death sentence that it used to be. And if a person choose not to, if they got everything that's there and is provided for them and they deny it, so in a way you're just choosing to
Well,
die.
we have to look at other factors as well. A person don't make these decisions on their own. We're looking at, is there lack of family support there?
Hmm.
Is it a religious belief that you shouldn't take your medication? Is it you feeling that you have any type of internalized fear or internalized dislike for yourself? Because I suffered with internalized homophobia for the longest because I didn't like myself because I knew who I was. And society told me, you being you is wrong. So I had to deal with it. So we have to think about the holistic approach. Do they need mental health? Do they need other type of avenues that can really support them to understand that your life is worth living? And yes, please take this medication because this will sustain your life. So we have to meet each individual on that level because some people are just not ready to take that one pill a day.
Lauren,
But that's,
go ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Now, I was about to say, when you first got your diagnosis, did you start on meds then?
I did. I started on this med called AZT.
Yeah, oh, I remember that.
Yeah, AZT. It didn't do anything for me. It didn't do anything to help me. It didn't do anything to hurt me. So my doctor and I decided that I would stop taking AZT until my body started showing signs of wear and tear.
Mm.
And I was fine for like 10 years. 10 years, I didn't have any problems. You know, I was going to the doctor every 3 months to get blood work drawn just so they could keep up with what was going on with everything.
Mhm.
The 10th year, I went through a very stressful period in my life, really stressful. I was doing a big event for the church, and it was a huge event. I was taking care of my sick mother. I was dealing with my own health issues. But after that 10th year, things just went down.
Mhm.
And I got so sick that my T cell count was 3.
Mm.
Wow.
So if your T cell count is 3, you have nothing to help you to fight off anything.
Right.
So I had a T cell count of 3, and it got to the point where I'm one of these people that talk to God. Okay, so I'm having this conversation with God, and I'm telling either you get me up from here and give me the strength that I need to do the things that I need to do, or you just take me on. It got to that point where I was just ready to die rather than to just be here without any purpose. And that's when my life turned around. And I went back to school, still sick, went back to school, studied what I always wanted to be, which was a television news journalist, did that, and ended up with a great job in Mississippi, and that's how we met. AnDerecco, that's how we met. But it was a long haul. You know, when I first tested, I was taking AZT, and then after AZT, they put me on 2 or 3 other medicines. When that didn't work, those still didn't work. And now I'm down to 1 pill a day. So we've come a long way in the 30 years that I've been diagnosed.
When you mentioned T cell, for people that don't know, give us the definition of T cell.
Jerry, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I was waiting on it. So
Okay.
T cells is your immune system, and how well your immune system can fight off any disease. So a healthy immune system is 500 or more. So 500 to 1500 T cells. So you get down to 3, like he said, you barely existed. But the blessing was, and you saw anointed, was the fact that AZT wasn't working for anybody back then. It actually was killing people.
Yes.
So that's the beauty of it. Thank God you did get out, and you and your doctor recognized that wasn't going to work because it wasn't working for anybody. You had a strong immune system. So usually within that situation, you can go 10 years without any medication, not even on anything. But in that 10th year, your body's going to start breaking down. But also you said something else, stress. Your stress level was beyond the roof. And we know stress exacerbates any type of situation.
Yes.
So it was beyond the roof. So your body was saying, you know what, I need help now. And you made those decisions. And also you redefine your purpose for life too. You went back to school, you started doing things. See, the thing about HIV and even COVID-19 is the fact that it wants you in a hopeless, helpless situation. It starts playing those mental games, and that's how it gets the best of people.
Mhm. That's interesting there. That's very interesting, especially with the depression part and everything. Now,
Oh yeah.
A lot of people think that HIV/AIDS is just a gay man's disease, but as LaWayne mentioned, that his cousin, who was female, he was straight, but you see it more in men than you do in women. Why? What? Some data?
Well, no, believe it or not, Black females and Black males, their numbers are close. I would like. We're still the group that is leading in HIV case rates. We're still the ones who are getting late diagnosis. And we get late diagnosis, it's getting harder and harder to treat because you may need a combination of medication. You may need your ART, which is antiviral therapy, and you may need some type of steroid to enhance the ability to get that immune system. See, the beauty of it is now with HIV, it takes a while. Well, not the beauty, but it takes a while for your CD4 count to go back up. But the medication brings your viral load down really fast, and the viral load is how much of the virus is in your body. We want that at a minimum. So the goal is always to have your viral load low and your CD4 count high, and that can be done with just one medication a day.
One pill a day, because you see a lot of the commercials on TV talking about the one pill.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's a lot of great advances with that one pill.
So the difference between the one pill a day and PrEP, is that kind of like the same medicine?
No, it actually can be the same medication, but the thing about with your PrEP medication, you are taking this to prevent from ever acquiring HIV.
Right.
And when you're taking HIV medication, if you're taking that correctly and consistently, you would never infect another person. I don't want to use the word infect, but another person can never acquire it from you because you're doing your due diligence as well. And that's when we started talking about community viral load. We started doing all of that. We started bringing everything down. But the thing is, what we're seeing is people still feel like they don't have access. A lot of individuals are under the impression that they need insurance, and you don't. You don't need insurance for PrEP, and you don't need insurance to be on your HIV medication if you are living with HIV.
Okay.
So we're trying to get that information back out there as well.
Are there any events that either one of you is participating with COVID now? Well, everything is doing streaming, so.
No, we do virtual events, but also we have our clinic back open because what we found out when we were closed for that 6 weeks, individuals came back. I had 7 young guys to test positive. Wow. So now we got them in care. Now they're living with HIV, and we're giving them, and each case is going to be different because one guy really didn't have any family support. So, but the beauty of it, this part is the beauty of it, he didn't have any family support, but we was able to get him housing as well. So we see his money out there for that too. Because when you talk about, I can tell you take your medication all day, but if you don't have somewhere to live and something to eat, that's the last thing on your mind. Or if like LaWayne was saying earlier, you in a domestic abuse situation, none of that matters. None of that matters. And that was the problem. In the beginning when we started this, we was not looking at it from holistic perspective. We was like, okay, we give you this medication, you should take it. But we were not understanding that every situation is different, that we have to meet them where they are.
Wow. That's all of this is interesting to me, especially with you talking about families putting children out, which we've heard about it, we've seen it, and it's also in some of the television programs that we see where families act differently with the HIV virus and also with the COVID-19 virus.
And with sexual orientation, we wouldn't have to bring HIV into the fold. Sexual orientation. Let's look at how much backlash Dwayne Wade is getting for letting his daughter be her true self. Now he's been called the worst dad ever, but look on the other hand, Dwayne can go get his son and nephews molested, but he's the best daddy ever. So let's look at how we prioritize things in the Black community.
Right. And that made me think, when you mentioned Dwayne Wade, it made me go back and think about Magic Johnson. When he first got his diagnosis, he told the public that he was living with HIV, and all the comments and backlash that he probably received that we don't know anything about. And he's going, what? Probably like LaWayne.
Yeah, he was my motivation. Okay. We tested around the same time. And when he tested, I told myself, I said, as long as he is alive, I'm going to be alive.
Mhm.
That was my motivation.
Okay. Okay. But that is all of it is very interesting to me. And it's a good thing that you had that motivational content there also. And now another thing that kind of that's on my mind is that you see a lot of television programs now. I was watching Greenleaf a couple of weeks ago, and her son, Grace's son, was raped in prison and contracted the virus. And I'm glad that they didn't put like a stigma on his character of putting him out and everything. And, you know, with that show being based basically around the church, and they are ministers and preachers and pastors and everything, that's where you find a lot of people realistically don't want, some, I would say that, wouldn't want to be a bother with a person whose sexual orientation was of the LGBT plus community, or somebody found out that they were positive, a person living with HIV, things of that nature. So we need, where do we can start? Well, Gerald, you do organizational work in the church with your program.
We have a lot of progressive faith-based institutions, but I still need to see more come on board. The thing about African Americans, we are so grounded in our faith. If we can get that missing piece to the puzzle, I guarantee you we can almost eradicate stigma when you talk about sexual orientation and sexual preference, as well as an individual that's living with HIV. Because they're just like everybody else. And anytime we have these conversations, I say that can be a part of you. Don't let it define you. We already being defined enough. We have to be this, we have to be that. Me being a same gender loving man, I've always thought I have to go in suited and booted with my armor on to be prepared for whatever they throw at me.
Mm-hmm. And what about with HIV and relationships?
Oh, there would be an individual you can have, and it's called a serodiscordant couple. So if I was dating someone that was living with HIV and I'm negative, we would be a serodiscordant couple because our statuses don't match. If both of us was living with HIV, we'll be a coordinate couple. But since we have different statuses, it's called a serodiscordant couple.
That's my first ever hearing of that.
That's my first time hearing that too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's what it's called. So their statuses don't match. So if both individuals are negative, that's a coordinate couple. If both of them are positive, that's a coordinate couple. If one is negative and one is living with HIV, that's a serodiscordant couple because their statuses are different.
Okay. Okay. I'm about to have to remember that.
Yeah.
That's my first time ever hearing that.
I remind you.
Appreciate that. I think we have pretty much covered everything that I wanted to basically talk about. Wayne, can you talk about your book where people can order a copy of it? Or
Yes, do that, Wayne.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate that. It's available everywhere. Amazon, Barnes and Noble. I think it takes a couple of days to get it back on Amazon.
Okay. And how can they get in contact with you in case they want to reach you for an event or what have you?
LaWayne Childry. I'm on Facebook, LaWayne Orlando Childry. I'm on Twitter. I'm on LaWayne Childry. That'll get you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Gerald, what about you? How can people contact you to find out more?
I'm on Facebook as Gerald G. Rock Gibson. And also what you were talking about earlier, what we're doing now is we're doing events like this. This is how we educating each other and staying in contact. Because right now, I applaud you, we have to social distance. We have to follow all these guidelines. We have to wear our masks. We have to keep the people around you, keep the same people around you if you can, and make sure individuals are getting tested. If you're in the Jackson area and you need to be tested, we can do that at Open Arms Haircare Center. And there's other testing sites around the state. I just only know about Jackson specifically, but it's out there. Please, everyone, take this seriously. Please take care of yourself. I want you here, even if I don't know you. I love you, but you got to love yourself better.
Amen.
Amen.
All right. Well, thank you, fellas. And I'm going to end this right here. Giving is an expression of our love and trust in God. It is not a requirement, just an opportunity to honor Him. Aside from the supernatural results we will see in our own lives, we will also see lives change as we minister the gospel of grace.
Be confident that when you sow a seed into this ministry, it is sown in good ground and produce much fruit. Thank you for your support and partnership with Lifeline Ministries. To make a donation, you can go to the link below, and that is paypal.me/LifelineM. Thank you, and may God continue to bless.